Radio Show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV Radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission Radio Show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear. Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission Radio Show. Today is February 14th, 2017. It's Valentine's Day. So I had scheduled with us Jose Gonzalez, who is a retired, I say he's not a retired, but he's not a, I guess, full-time counselor for people. I was not able to get in touch with him this morning. I have no idea what came up. We had scheduled this and confirmed it. So maybe he had a family emergency or something. I've texted him my phone number, but I have no idea. Not on Skype, not on the phone, not on text. So I hope he's okay, and I hope his family's okay. So that means that I have an hour with you guys myself. So if anybody wants to call in, the phone number is 718-717-8106. That's 718-717-8106. And if nobody calls, you know what happens here is I just talk about what's on my heart. So I think I will talk to you about what's on my heart about it all, though. And that is our activism. I have been going through quite a bit lately for sticking my neck out and maybe not doing it correctly, according to some people. And then, this is the thing. Valentine's Day, let's just look at what the Googles tells us about Valentine's Day. I picked up a Wikipedia site just a second ago when I realized it really wasn't going to happen with Jose calling us. So I'm like, I better get on this, because I wanted to talk to him about how love is an activity. Love is not just a word. The idea of being in love or falling in love or loving your kids. It's not like you love your kids and you have this emotion. You love your family, you love your children, you love your spouse with actions. Actions is what matters. And when, I kind of railed on here about the epidemic of violence against women and children, frankly. And that is not an act of love. That's an act of rage. And the abuser always comes back and says, I love you. I went through this as a child. My parents were excessively abusive. I was so confused as a young person. I could not figure out frankly, by the time I was 13 years old, I didn't believe in love. I thought it was a pile of crap. I'm like, really? Everybody loves McDonald's hamburgers. If that's love, I don't want any part of it. I was really quite put off by the whole idea of what it was, and I just went through my life for quite a long time until I gave birth, not really understanding what love really is. And when I gave birth to Lennon, my first daughter, my life changed immediately that second. And I realized that love is not something that you feel. Love is something that you do. And you resist the urge to express your anger in ways that make you feel good. I mean, this is the thing about the battery that's going on. How many women are going to be battered tonight? A lot. Probably a lot. And their abusers are going to make them feel like it's, their fault as usual because they made them do it. Let me make sure I don't get any phone calls on top of everything else. So it's important for us to remember what love is and what love is not. And I don't believe that love is violent. It is an act of love to walk away from somebody when you're so angry. I mean, that's the action of love. Not striking out, not being verbally abusive, refusing to participate in that damaging of the other person. Finding a way to express yourself with love and tenderness and kindness. And remember that the other person is just as fragile as you are. So we're all like these damaged, fragile human beings. Very few of us make it to adulthood without something going on. So we come into these love relationships. So this is this deal about Valentine's Day called St. Valentine's Day, the Feast of St. Valentine's Day. So how did it get turned into us being, it doesn't look like this whole long thing was about her. St. Valentine healed the daughter of his jailer, and before his execution, he wrote her a letter, "Your Valentine," as a farewell. So this became associated, that one signature, you signed the letter, "Your Valentine," became kind of the thing of saying that you were in love. St. Valentine of Rome was indicted, St. Valentine's of Rome, which indicated he was in prison for performing weddings for soldiers who were forbidden to marry and for ministering to Christians who were persecuted under the Roman Empire. Wow. So we have this huge, how much money is made on St. Valentine's Day? How many people feel less than because they don't have somebody to love? Really? There's lots of us for each other to love. We just have to open our eyes and open our hearts and open our arms and just let people in. That's the thing. And, I think it takes courage. This is why I tell people to put your courage feet on. And I guess I should have said shoes when I started that statement, but it's like you just almost have to put on a new set of feet. Like you have to just decide you're going to walk a different way. It is not an easy path to be a human being. So I think it's extremely important for us to remember that. And especially now that we live in the age of fission and the alternative lies, the whole theory about lying to us, that, it's like I said when I first got into this, they can lie about the harm that nuclear is causing, but they're not going to lie about the deaths. And actually, they are lying about the deaths. What was that story I read this morning? Let me see if I had it on my cell phone. Actually, it was on the Google News. And it was by Dr. Helen Caldicott, and she is talking about Fukushima being out of control. And what she say? She said that in Japan, doctors can now not be paid by the state if they tell their patient that their issues were caused by radiation. So is that, they can tell them, but they just won't be paid for the visit. I guess that's the downside to socialized medicine, right? When the government decides that you can't tell your patients the truth. What is really worse? Not telling your patients the truth because the government tells you not to do it, or you're not taught the truth because the agency who is overseen by the government, the AMA, chooses not to teach you. Like, we have a lot of minimally medically educated doctors in this country, which is why we kill 1 million people a year in this country from malpractice. It's a disgusting system that we live in, to be frank. And I think that Trump being elected is pulling back the ugly curtain of who and what America has really allowed itself to turn into. And I think that's an appropriate topic on the day of Valentine's Day when we're talking about being in love and being loved. the forbidden topic of abuse, of battery, the epidemic of battery that is gone on, really, frankly, in almost every culture. I mean, in Russia, they're actually like making it somewhat legal. Like the first time you beat your wife up, you get a warning. The reality is statistically showing if you beat your wife, you're going to do it again and it's going to get worse. That first step of violence cannot be tolerated. As human beings, we have to learn a different way. We have to train ourselves and take responsibility for our own actions 100% of the time. And it's not just, oops, I slipped up. I mean, I've slipped up and I ripped a radio apart with my bare hands one time. That was pretty violent, but I didn't hurt anybody. Well, I think I did hurt somebody. I scared the crap out of my kids. So on Valentine's Day, we need to remember what love really is. Love is an action verb. And that also means facing this business with Fukushima and the nuclear lies and the nuclear monsters. I mean, part of why they don't think Fukushima is so bad is because they're doing it anyways. I mean, the French have just like built pipes from their nuclear power plants out to the Atlantic Ocean. Just poof, let's just put it underneath there and nobody can see it. And everybody loves France. France has figured, some girl at a Bernie campaign actually argued with me that France has discovered what to do with their nuclear waste. They don't have hardly any nuclear waste. Well, she's right. There isn't hardly any nuclear waste because they pump it all into the ocean. Needless to say, should we look up the mass animal deaths today to see what's happened? I don't know if many of you know about it, but we had like 400 whales die. It was really sad. Got beached. I think like 300 of them died. Let me look up mass animal deaths. So Jose, if you're out there, you can give me a call at 718-717-8106, and that's for anybody. If anybody wants to call in and talk to me, I do believe that number will work. It is 718-717-8106. It's Valentine's Day, you guys, and we're talking about mass animal deaths. Oops. I mean, I guess that's, if we're going to really love this planet, then we need to really love the planet and be honest about it, right? Like, we need to walk in love. Walking in love means taking responsibility and finding solutions. I mean, being able to face this allows us to find the solutions. As long as we deny it, we are not, like all those children, they could be conducting scientific experiments on all these kids if they know they're going to die. Instead of telling the doctors, you're not going to get paid for telling your patients their negative effects are caused by radioactivity contamination, they ought to say, you have been, and let's figure out how much millisieverts you got, how much exposure you got. Let's compare what your results are. Let's take a look and let's figure out if we can look at your molecular structure to turn something around so that you can live and thrive instead of just wasting away and dying in 10 to 15 years. It's the comeuppance. February 13th. This is a sad thing. 700 plus bats died, quote, due to heat in South Wales. Do bats die of heat exhaustion? Maybe it was just so hot down there. But that's a bad thing. We need the bats. The bats help us with, what do they help us with? Bats help us with cashew plants, banana nuts, all those very high fruits. 130,000 birds in Taiwan killed. 350 whales dead after 650 were stranded in Farewell Spit in New Zealand. Wow. 2,500 zygote antelopes have died due to disease in Mongolia. 20,000 ducks in the Czech Republic. 100,000 dead fish found washed up in Apura, Peru. Wow. Hundreds of dead fish. Hundreds of dead seabirds found on the coast of Huanahuaco, Peru. How can that happen? So it's that same West Coast thing. That's only to February 6th. Let me get to February 6th. Let me finish what it says to February 6th. 71,000 chickens killed due to the avian flu, thousands of ducks dying from disease in Washington. I think we read that link the last time. That was the last one we read. Wow. So these are all the things that people say, well, let's just go out and have a good time. I don't want to talk about that. We can't talk about that. But we can talk about Valentine's Day and go spend a bunch of money and eat a bunch of food and or feel bad about not having it or beating ourselves up. Like this whole thing that we do surrounding Valentine's Day while we ignore the real issue. I mean, I have to give it up to Mimi Gurman, the co-director of No Nukes Northwest. I mean, she created No Nukes Northwest, but you know what she's done very recently is, and she's even gotten on the news about it, is she's creating networks for homeless people. She refused to listen to the city during these cold snaps, say, well, we just don't have the housing. Sorry, they're closed. She was relentless. She and her small band, a group of people just went to city council meetings, sat on the mayor's door, just called them, emailed them. And you know what happened after they met her? I think that the mayor got it. I think her active, effective, peaceful conversation of look, this is not good enough. There's people in the street that need our help, and we can set up networks. There's people out on the street willing to help. The city has got to do more to connect the people who can help with the people who need the help. And we need your coordination. And this is the function of government. That is part of the function of government. This is why we form governments, is to protect the general welfare. So that's an act of love. That's a real act of love. Those are acts of love that we can all do in our own communities. And we can reach out to people in our own communities and figure out, how do we get the people who want to help with the people who need the help? And then I guess eventually some of those people that needed the help can start helping themselves or helping other people. Because I find that people, I think that's partly why I'm so driven, because when I was much younger, I mean, I grew up not in abject poverty, but we were not well taken care of. My father got very sick when I was 2 years old. He had hepatitis almost died. I guess he had it for 2.5 years, and that my parents had 8 kids, so you do the math. It took us a long time to recuperate. So, there was a lot of things going on top of everything else that went on in that household. So we come to adulthood with these concepts of who we are and what we're supposed to do, and then we're brainwashed through the media that we're not perfect if we don't have this, we don't have that, and you need to be loved all the time. You have to have someone there all the time, and that's just not how life is. Like today, something happened with Jose. Like he was planning on being here. We were going to have this great thing, but something happened. I have no idea what happened with Jose today. But you know what? I respect him enough and know that something must have happened, that he's somewhere else. And I hope to God his family's okay. I know his sister had gone through something recently. So, put out a little prayer blessing for Jose and his family. Let me see if I got it. Just looks like I might have gotten a text message, but not from him. I did get a text message. So the phone number is 718-717-8106. There's another story besides this St. Valentine's Day deal that I really wanted to talk about, because it brings me back to a constant theme that seems to be going on in my world of activism, and that is that activists, this whole anti-nuclear thing is such an offense to our sensibilities that a lot of people just can't face it or don't want to face it. The hard reality is we must face it for our children as an act of love. We must face it. If you looked in your own state, whatever state you're in, just look at the fuse wrap map. Google the fuse wrap map. You will be shocked. In fact, I'm going to be, I'll make an announcement, I guess. I don't know if I did this before, but I put a panel request in for the Public Interest Environmental Law Conference at the University of Oregon in September. And it got accepted. And this is the thing, all this effort that we're putting into it, we have an hour and 15 minutes to talk. So I invited, the people that have confirmed with me is Mimi Gurman, Donna Gilmore, and Helen Caldecott. Now, we had originally wanted to bring Helen Caldecott and Donna Gilmore here, but it's cost prohibitive to bring Dr. Caldecott here. And Donna Gilmore has things going on down there that she'd rather just do a Skype conference. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to Skype in Dr. Caldecott and Donna Gilmore, and Mimi Gurman and I will be live. And this is the thing. The title of it is called Nuclear Waste Realities. And I think facing this is an act of love. We have been ignoring it and pretending like nuclear waste is not everywhere, but it is everywhere. And it is causing our species and our planet to die because we are choosing to let the people who want this nuclear energy, the nuclear war, really what they want is nuclear war. The nuclear energy power plants are just a guise. They have nothing to do with energy at all. We get for 70 years, we're getting less than 10% of our output from an energy source that costs us billions of dollars. And I mean billions and trillions and quadrillions. By the time it's all over with, it is going to be the most expensive, grandest, biggest failure of humanity ever if it doesn't entirely kill our entire planet. I mean, when I started this, I had no idea how extensive the nuclear waste contamination is on our planet. None. But it is an act of love, folks, for us to wake up and say, you know what? We need to, their plan, this is the ironic thing. Their plan for remediating the nuclear waste is exactly what they did in Fukushima, what they're doing in St. Louis. Pick the dirt up, drag it somewhere, and try to bury it. That's their plan. Minimal, and as Dr. Busby explained, low-level contamination, continued low-level contamination is as catastrophic, if not worse, than high dosages, because just the nature of how it comes into our body and accumulates. So I really believe that every person on this planet needs to actively engage on this issue. We need billions of people, not just millions, folks. First, we got 5 million people out in the street because they were afraid that their rights were going to be taken away. So, really, what about your right to breathing? What about your right to air and water and clean land? That's already been taken away, and nobody stands out in the street. Well, on 3/11, I'm definitely standing out in the street. I don't know what I'm going to be organizing. I don't know who will show up. Probably Kevin Finnegan and Theo, hippie with a gun. It'll be the three of us. We're like the three musketeers standing out on street corners with anti-nuclear signs here in Eugene, Oregon. It's kind of a sight to see. So the phone number here, if you want to give us a call, is 718-717-8106. Today is Valentine's Day. It's kind of a call-in day simply because my guest and I did not connect, and so I have no idea where he's at. So Jose, if you want to give us a call, you can at 718-717-8106 in case you're in a place where you can call in. It'd be great to talk with you. If not, I'm going to reschedule with him, and we are going to have this talk about love, because it's really important for us to understand that love is really more than just a feeling. Love is an action verb. I believe that our planet Gaia, that's our primary emotion. I think that's our primary gift to the universe is love. And I think that's why our planet is going to survive and thrive, because love is greater than fear. And love is the greatest force on this planet. And I think that we can actually survive past it. I don't know how, but I believe that, and I think our thoughts are things, and the fact that I believe it, when there's billions of us believing this is how we're going to get through it. So that's my 2 cents on love. Let me see. I wanted to share with you the nuclear alerts because I'm wondering if the nuclear alert center is going to change now that we have the Trump nation going on. I wonder if those whole things are going to come off. Well, the nuclear alerts certainly don't pop up right away. Nuclear report, February 8th, 2017. What is it that they're not telling us happened today? Oh my gosh. Illinois Emergency Management and Environmental Design International. When did this happen? On event date 129. It says it's a non-emergency. Oh, it's a stolen X-ray fluorescent analyzer. Somebody stole it. The U.S. Coast Guard, non-emergency, another stolen piece of equipment. Tritium exit signs. Qualtech Association, non-emergency, another stolen 1,000 times. Oh my gosh. 2 Troxler nuclear density gauges were shipped from our Idaho facility. So 2 of them got lost. They just got lost in the destination. Okay, they did get found. Don't worry. The terrorists don't have it all yet. To be really honest, they could just go right into a lot of these places and just, it's the way we have, if that's another thing that's like appalling to us, is if we were to actually find out about how they store the stuff and what they really do and the crimes against people that they're doing to the people who get harmed. When someone gets sick, they just deny him and walk away, close the corporation, start a new corporation. Oh, in LaSalle, Illinois, at this LaSalle facility power reactor in Illinois, isn't this one of the leaking ones? Unit 1, automatic reactor scram due to main generator trip on differential current. That's a bad thing. RPS actuation. Radio reactor power switch. What's that RPS? February 13th, 2017. The automatic scram signal was received due to turbine control valve fast closure. The turbine trip was due to the main generator trip of the differential current. The plant is in stable condition with reactor pressure being maintained. Reactor water level is being controlled with feed water. So they're pouring water into it. Investigation into the cause of the event is in progress. All control rods fully inserted on the scram. Unit 1 is a normal shutdown. Unit 2 was not affected. Well, that's kind of frightening. You know, the people in Illinois are really, it's sad because I was dumbfounded when the easy part to do this, the easy way to do this is just go to Google and type in fuse wrap map. And you will see a list of all the fuse wrap sites. And it is beyond shocking where they are. Now, fuse wrap, so that you guys can understand, because this is a really important sentence for us to remember. They love to use these acronyms that we can't figure it out, like, blah, it fills your mouth full of words, right? So listen to what this means. This is just incomprehensible that we have a fuse wrap site, and we just sort of say it as if it's nothing. It stands for Formally Utilized Sites Remedial Action Program. Remedial Action Program, initiated in 1974 to identify, investigate, and clean up or control sites that were part of the nation's early atomic energy and weapons program. It took them until 1974. Until 1974 to decide to clean up the sites. So how much problems do you think there was between the late 50s, the 60s, till the 74s, to the mid 70s, beyond? Now see, that's not an act of love, folks. We're talking about acts of love. An act of love does not, this goes back to the heart of my first part of the conversation that I had with myself here. Is that we're living in a country where there's a lot of battery going on. This is battery. This is really literally battery. The fact that women and children are demeaned so grotesquely in our country. And this, I actually got harassed on my YouTube channel because I wore a hijab in support of the Muslim Americans here. And I got all these comments saying, well, those people murder their people and they mistreat their women and blah. They do all these things to women over there and women are subjected to this and that. Well, actually, women are subjected to everything over there. The only difference is women get to cover themselves up and spare themselves the gawking comments from a bunch of bastards who could give a crap about you. I mean, to be honest, I would love to be able to wear something fully when I go out and protect myself, because the first thing people do is look at you in this country and judge you without, I mean, they don't even know you and they make all these assessments about you. And then there's that old adage, well, men don't care. Yeah, because men are not the topic of that. That's why men don't care what they look like, because they're not the topic of open ridicule. So, I mean, on Valentine's Day, how many women are going to get beat up tonight? A lot. How many kids are going to be subjected to seeing the violence of some guy who completely has the tough guy's attitude, the hypermasculinity, who's so insecure he needs complete obedience? Well, I personally believe myself, this is 100% my opinion. I think that's partly why Melania will not move into the White House. She finally gets a chance to move away from that bastard. So I don't blame her. I wouldn't want to live with him either. Fuse wrap sites, folks. I don't know what state you live in, but I am going to pull this map up and you can take a look at it because it is beyond comprehension. How many are there? I guess I should Google that, but there's one. There's one here in Oregon in Albany, and it was Hope Castor who talked to us about that. There's one at Berkeley. Berkeley is actually there. That's a university. I mean, this is just unbelievable. It's really unbelievable. They're all over the place in our country. And you know what they all are? Is open wounds to the earth. They've just been left gaping open wounds. And what are they doing? How are they remediating them? They're sort of strip mining them, taking the dirt and bringing the dirt to somewhere else. But they're not actually fixing the entire area because they don't go out 100 miles or 150. They go a very small area. And this does not even counter a lot of the chemical dumping and all the chemical waste that we've done. We have a huge responsibility on this planet right now, folks, to really be in love, to act loving and to be loving. And that means figuring out a way that we can each actively get engaged and how we can all get out of our houses, get away from our computers, do something, I still believe it's important for us to call our elected officials, just like Mimi Gurman got involved with the city council and with the mayor's office, because those are the people with the purse strings, those are the people with the key to the city lights, those are the people with the information and the ability to connect people. The reason our government isn't functioning, the reason people say, well, the government doesn't do anything, it's because we as citizens do so very little. It's easy for them to be corrupt. Easy. This guy, Mike Flynn, they're saying, well, maybe he ought to be indicted. Hell yeah, he ought to be indicted. Like, he's a military man. He knew the rules. He can't just sit and talk to Putin's people and say, hey, don't worry about it. Once we're in, we're going to lift those sanctions. We saw that going on anyways. But now, I mean, they're like spitting it in our faces. If we are not calling our elected officials, and I mean especially you people in Texas and in Utah, on the Republican side, like people with elected officials, senators who are Republicans, I mean, this guy needs to be indicted for treason. I mean, it's not about having good relationships with Russia. It's deeper than that, and it's not about business relationships. Russia is actively, now I don't agree with any of the actions the United States is taking on Syria. I mean, that's where the conversation needs to go. If we want to have a real relationship with Russia, we need to talk about Why are we seemingly on opposite sides yet still killing the same people? Like the whole war machine, the whole conversation about why we even have a war machine has not even been discussed in this election cycle, or even right now. All we hear the White House say is we have to pump up our military and pump up our police force, which is kind of funny. Did you read that story this morning about the Tulsa Police Department? They canceled a reality show that was following around their police officers, and they had to cancel it because it showed straight up racial profiling very often. Like the police officer, a guy was in his trunk, he had on a polo shirt, but just a blue polo shirt. That's all it was. He looked like a regular human being, a regular guy, middle-aged man, getting into the trunk of his car. The police pulled him over and said he looked like he had a gang shirt on because it was blue with red and green stripes on it. Like, really? That's a gang shirt? I mean, he was just straight up harassing the guy. Racial profiling, just so intense. And so the police department just pulled the show. Instead of fixing the issue with their cops, they just pulled the show. I just think it's hilarious. So that means that people in Tulsa need to get actively engaged and stop that. See, it's not just them against us. I mean, the police officers are actually human beings. They're people who are just being trained. It's like, in fact, one of the videos that Mimi Gurman did that I watched on Facebook when she was down at the mayor's office, her and her friends went down, the other activists, they just went down to City Hall and hung around there until they got appointments, until they met people. So in the meantime, they were engaging this security guard. And the security guard had mace and a gun. And they said, well, if you're not one of those violent police officers, why are you carrying this? And he said, well, it's mandatory. So it's mandatory that our police officers get maced. It's mandatory that they get trained on how to harm people. It's mandatory that they expect military respect from every citizen. I mean, that is the big change for me. So I'm getting off track as usual. So from the Valentine's Day. So this whole thing about Valentine's Day has just turned into what? A big free-for-all. So I guess it's been turned into it. It has slowly evolved from Valentine's Day from the 1400s forward to where now it's like this big mega day for money. I mean, it says 190 million Valentine's cards are sent each year. Lord, that doesn't even count the one the kids give to each other. Wow. This is what the Wikipedia says. In fact, the United States alone, the average Valentine spending has increased every year from $108 to $131 in 2013 on Valentine's Day. Every person in the United States, on average, that's how much money they're spending. That's a lot of money. Imagine if we took that money, invested it in our roads, or invested it, I don't know, I guess we're personally spending it, but what if we put it into community organizations? Giving children food on the street. The thing is about homeless children, folks, is we don't see homeless children. They hide out in America. In South America, they're very out in the street asking for money. They want your sympathy because they can't be separated from their parents if they're homeless and they're out begging for money. In the United States, if a parent is out on the street with their kids, the state will just come in and take them. And so the kids get separated. So children that are homeless hide. So these are the issues that on Valentine's Day we ought to be talking about. These are real acts of love. Like, how do we help families stay together? How do we keep families in housing? How do we help people stay in homes? How do we help the people that are so broken they cannot manage their lives, that they can't keep stuff together? I mean, we have a broken culture of people. And then on top of that, we have a bunch of very adequate people who've lost their jobs and can't find another job because, or they can find a job, but they're only making $8 or $9 an hour, and that's not enough to live on. Barely scrape a room together for that. I mean, I know I was making $8, $9, $10 an hour when I had my kids. I had to work 2 or 3 jobs. So America needs a little comeuppance, and I think this Trump nation thing is going to actually do it because the egregiousness. I'm actually still nonplussed. If there's anybody out there that wants to talk to me about this Trump nation and why we need to defend it, you can give me a call at 718-717-8106. Like the idea of why do we need to give Trump a chance? Why are we going to allow Betsy DeVos to fire 460,000 teachers and then give money to private corporations to rehire those teachers? What's the point of that? That does nothing to help our children. Same thing like with, I mean, every department. Let's cut out. What did this Senator John Garamendi was saying about the I guess it's that risk of that dam breaking. As our dams are breaking, we need to put money into our infrastructure, folks. And the Republicans have just said, screw you. I mean, for a long time, they're not letting us do it. And it's beyond me how anybody in this country could vote for a Republican. If you're going to vote, how could you vote for them? To me, they're just the worst monsters in the world. I don't see how they have helped our country one bit. They don't do one bit of help. All they do is obstruct and give money to their friends. Like now, they're digging in deep. Steve Mnuchin, who just got hired in, didn't even disclose his Cayman Islands accounts. What do you think they're going to do for the Fed? Oh my God. I don't think we're going to last till September. I think the economy is going to crash hard, or maybe this whole noise about Iran means that that's the signal that Trumpy wants to start a war with Iran. Maybe that's how they plan on saving the economy, huh? Through war. That's usually how the neocons play the game. Again, it comes back to being in love, acting in love, having the courage to stand up to these people, just not allowing them to just destroy our planet and destroy. To be honest, I feel quite responsible. I mean, I'm 60 years old and I basically took a back seat for most of my life because I believed them. I really believe that Dianne Feinstein and Barbara Boxer and Jane Harman, you know, I grew up in California. These are women I voted for many times. You know, I really believed that the Democrats were taking care of us, that they were like keeping in check the greed of the Republican Party. No idea that what is running our country is the industrial military complex and the nuclear industry. The liars from the nuclear industry, and they are liars. It's not alternative facts, they're liars. We have nuclear waste all over this country. Every fuse wrap site is a nuclear waste dump site. Let's take a look at that map. I mean, it's beyond comprehension where they're at. I mean, the West Coast, east of the Mississippi, there's Bayo Canyon and Chupadera Mesa. That's the only two places. Acid Pueblo Canyon and Bayo Canyon, they're right next to each other. And Chupadera Mesa, those are all in New Mexico. And then we have one in Berkeley, and then there's a whole handful of them east of the Mississippi. I mean, like a lot. New Brunswick, Middlesex North, New Jersey, Wayne, New York, Seymour, Indian Orchard, Beverly, Tonawanda North Units 1 and 2, Niagara Falls Vicinity Properties. How do you like that? That's kind of scary. Niagara Falls Vicinity Properties, plural, Buffalo, Alaquipa, Springdale, Adrian, Toledo, Chicago North, Chicago South, Oxford, Hamilton, Fairfield, Columbus East, Oak Ridge Warehouses, Granite City, and Madison. Lord, that's all fuse wrap sites, folks. And I can guarantee you we can find a map that we will see high levels of cancer, high levels of genetic mutations. This is why they needed to develop the industrial military industrial medical complex, because they knew what they were doing. So it's a sad situation here for real. It's just not a good thing. And yet we move on, like today's, Valentine's Day. Go see your sweetheart, but don't mention Fukushima. Fukushima is coming up. The 6 year, I don't know if any of you even thought 6 years ago that the world governments would just decide to click their heels, say Sig Heil, and turn away and say, well, let's just pretend. Let's just pretend that it's not real. So, I mean, it's beyond comprehension. And then on top of these fuse wrap sites, folks, this is another little tidbit. The United States can't account for 36 pounds of weapon grade uranium and pluton. So that's that. Hold on, I'm going to add a caller in. Hold on just one second. Good morning. You're on with Lonnie Clark on the Age of Fission Radio. Hello? Well, I don't think we are. I think they hung up. Okay, so here we are again.
Hi, Lonnie.
Yes, here you are. I think you're on live with us on UCY Radio. Thanks for joining us.
Well, I know that. Yeah, well, nobody's phoning in to wish you happy Valentine's Day, so I'm phoning in. Ask you if you'll be my Valentine, even though we live a long ways apart.
Yes.
I've been listening to the show and talking with some people in chat and enjoying a lot of the conversation. I won't get too much into Trump, but like I said, I've studied him quite a bit.
So what are they talking about in the chat room? I don't go into the chat room, so what's the deal?
Most people in there are pretty cool people. I mean, they're all sharing thoughts, and we're bouncing ideas back.
Do they love the Trump nation? Are they Trumpers?
I don't really know if I.
I wish they'd call in because I'd really love.
Yeah, well, they should all call in and give an opinion about what they think about the show, because there's lots of comments going on and people are listening to what's being said. So it'll be great to have a little bit more interaction with the people out there that have comments to make. But that's all cool. I thought I'd phone in, just wish you happy Valentine's Day.
Isn't that the way activism is? See, that's been my big lesson in activism. Everybody has something to say, but they're not wanting to say it to each other.
Well, the good news is the moose up in northern British Columbia here mysteriously are all of a sudden starting to lose all their hair.
Are they really?
Yeah, I just read 3 reports on it in the last couple of days here. The ministry.
And it's a mystery. It's a real mystery.
It's a mystery. Why are they losing their hair? Moose are showing up with big patches of hair missing all over their body, and they've never seen this before. I was talking to a gentleman up in Canyon City yesterday, one of the natives, and he's never seen this. They're trying to say that it could possibly be a tick infestation. That's bunk.
Well, you know what? This is the weird part. Okay, so there is if there is a tick infestation, so then what's in the ticks? Like, okay, let's figure out what's in the ticks. Like, is anybody testing at all for nuclear radiation and contamination? No. That's the thing. We need to demand contamination exams because it's ridiculous. We're going 6 years on into Fukushima, and frankly, in the last month, things have gotten from bad to worse there. You know what I mean?
Well, simply, Lonnie, people could go out and buy themselves their own detector, and you can get, sophisticated detectors now in the market for $1,000, $1,500, and you can do your own sampling and get it monitored and verified in your community and take it to the newspaper. If you had a notary public present in your community and you tested something right in front of that notary and he verified it and you took it to the newspaper, they would be forced to publish it. They would be forced to. So that's the avenue. People have to become active, go do their own sampling, get your hands on, get a group of people together.
You know what we really have to do is get the sampling.
Just an idea. I'm throwing out right now, Lonnie.
The issue is with the air sampling can be contested because how you take air sampling is you have to do it specifically, though, in order for them to acknowledge it. But what we could do, and I heard this idea recently, and this is something that I'm going to move forward with in the next year. Get together a group of people in your community and get a food tester because these things are about $6,000. So you need to put your funds together, but test your food and bring the level of food contamination to your city council because then it is a verifiable. See, the Geiger counter testing, if you don't do your Geiger counter set your thing up right. You can skew the tests, and there's a lot of ways to bungle it and make it not workable, right? But with food testing, it's a machine that you put the food in, and that's something that's very verifiable. So if every community had, I mean, one of the things that I was talking about is like not facing. We're talking about Valentine's Day, and thank you. Yes, I will be your Valentine. And on Valentine's Day, is that we're talking a lot about love, but what we're not talking about is what it really means to love. Like love is an action verb, and I believe that facing the fact that this nuclear industry has done nothing but lie to us and we have been battered wives for 70 years. This is why I cannot uncouple that from the epidemic of battery going on in, I don't know about your country, but in ours and in many parts of the world. I think it is very similar to the denial that we have all got to pretend like everything's fine, just fine, while we're getting pummeled on a daily basis with nuclear pollution.
Well, really, what greater act of love could we have as a human race right now, Lonnie, than we all unify against the one thing that we all must unify, that is the destruction of our planet.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that is the greatest act of love that we can get involved in right now, because I look at what's going on here, and I have grandchildren and children that are going to grow up in a world that is just devastated. We look at
They're not
5
going to
years
have
down the
moose.
road.
Let's be
Well,
clear.
they're not going to
The
have a
animals,
world, Lonnie. It's cut and
yeah.
dry now. It's the
Well,
writing is on the wall. We can't bullshit about it anymore. Excuse my language. The writing is on the wall. If we don't become active, if we don't start looking ourselves in the mirror, then we're going to have to look at our children maybe 5 years down the road and say, "Hey, there ain't nothing to eat." We need to make changes now, guys, and it's all in front of us. It really is. Every answer is in front of us, but we must reach out and become
look,
active.
even if we have
Each and one
food
of
to
us.
eat, even if we have food to eat,
It's going to be so
and
radiated and toxic that you
yes,
can't eat.
well, I mean, we really do have to. I mean, Charlotte, my friend Charlotte Anthony is very real about this. She was telling me how if we plant, her thing is like get the microbes in the ground. The microbes really can help remediate and reverse things around. Microbes are like super brains. Like the microbes and the mushrooms, they're super brains. They can calculate how we need to fix it all. But we have to get enough, we have to get everybody deciding that they're going to have their own eco environment in their own backyard. And she was saying, like, if we would just replace grass with clover, because clover's roots go down deeper and it gets the microbes in the dirt farther, and just
Mhm.
keep putting microbes on the ground. And microbes are really the answer. And it really is like one of the things that we can do. But when you start talking about things like that, people look at us like you're some fruit. You know what I mean? Like, really? Okay, you're a little butterfly planting microbes in the ground. But that is really, this is how simple the remediation is. And I think we need to pressure our elected officials. Like, the city of Eugene here ought to be start talking about endorsing this concept of supporting microbial growth in our grounds and doing things that we can do to, I mean, there's things that we can do to fix it. And I think it does have to come from the grassroots level, from each little city out.
Absolutely. Everything I see, all changes in society coming from grassroots levels, because if we depend on the government to make changes, they won't. But if we bring things to public attention, especially, there's lots of ways, Lonnie, like we don't have time to talk about it today, but some of the thoughts I have about people getting involved and exposing this to people in the community, very simple ways, like things going out and testing your soil. We just took 3 random soil samples from around Terrace. We know they've been geoengineering over Terrace for years. Anything metal has to come to the ground. If we test that ground and find trace levels of aluminum or any other kind of contaminant in the soil, that's a verifiable fact that can be published locally and make people aware of what's going on. A lot of people are still in the dark. They really are. They don't understand the depth of what we're facing right now as a human race. The biosphere is under attack. Doing what you're talking about, adding microbes back to the soil, the hemp plant's the best one in the world for doing that, guys. Look into it. And I talk about that a lot. That has an answer to a lot of our problems. We must grab these, Dolly, because we are really getting into a very, very bad situation. I
Huh.
wouldn't wish it on
Yeah,
anybody.
Well, we're in a very bad situation. Like we're in the pot, like we're already in the pot where the water's, we're the frogs and it's kind of too hot. We're just like, oh yeah, this feels really good. You know what I mean? Like people are just swimming, like, yeah.
Well, people are still asleep, Lonnie. It's amazing. Some people in society, like even believe it or not, one of our a gentleman that's running for one of the political parties, has a political party in Canada, was had no idea. A couple days ago, I started talking to him about Fukushima. Well, he had, a guy that's running a political party in Canada didn't have any idea exactly what was going on in Fukushima, and had no idea the depth of the problem. Went and looked at it and was just absolutely flabbergasted. Well,
Yep.
we really have to get we have to, every time we get a chance now, just get people, say, look, guys, go have a look on the internet and study some of the links on Fukushima. Punch up anything. Fukushima updates, radiation leakage updates around the
Right.
world, leakage of contamination of
Helen
radiation.
Caldecott wrote an
Yeah,
article in
and just
today's
look at it.
newspaper, got printed. It said, this is the sad part, is like doctors in Japan, they do not get paid if they tell their patients that their diseases are caused from radioactivity. That's a law in Japan. Can you
Yeah,
imagine that? So
yeah.
we do need to speak out, and this is an act of love. I mean, I think this is appropriate for us to talk about it on Valentine's Day when we're talking about like having sweethearts and being in love and loving our planet. Like, if we really do, Helen Caldicott's radio show, if you love this planet, like, it really does matter that we speak out, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And one of the things, that's why I'm glad that you call in, because it is important for us to say things to with each other and to each other and to engage. That's one of the most difficult challenges I'm finding with the activist community, is they all have their own deal on how it should be perfect. So they don't want to talk to anybody else who's not doing it like they're doing it. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like, really?
that's the biggest challenge facing us as the alternative is we have to put aside our individual differences and focus on one objective. And if we can do that, we'll see leaps and bounds. But right now, we see the alternative fighting amongst themselves over issues
Mhm.
that really aren't relevant. We have to
Right.
focus on the main issue. And that's why I like listening to your show. A lot of things you talk about, I don't agree with, but that doesn't stop me from calling in and sharing my thoughts with you. That's what
You
we need to.
don't
Well,
agree
hey,
with
well, there's lots of things you've said that I don't agree with, Lonnie, but
me?
then
Oh, I'd
that
love
makes
to
us
hear it. You
individuals.
need to call me
Well,
up and
no,
talk.
yeah,
Because
we will.
I love this because this is how we change our ideas and how we think about things, is when
Well,
people who don't agree with us open up in conversation and say, hey,
you
look, this
can't
is
close your mind, guys. No matter what is being said, you can't take the position that you're right no matter what is being said to you. You're right. You always have to be able to listen to other people's thoughts. You have to be able to communicate with people. And that's something in our society that has been taken greatly away from us, is our ability to communicate with each other through the virtual age that we live in. We now live in a virtual age. We do not communicate. And that is one thing that we need to work on as human beings, the ability to look at each other in the eye and say, look, we got some problems. Let's sit down and have coffee and talk about it instead of watching a football game and drinking your beer.
we're not talking about, because that's the thing about the internet age, is you can just disconnect. Oh, I don't like you, unfriend, click, block, see you next. You know what I mean? It becomes a very isolated world, because guess what? We probably don't agree with a lot of people on a lot of things, but we don't have to. That's the major point about it all, is we don't have to agree. We do have to treat each other
Exactly.
with love and kindness and respect, and allow each other to be ourselves. And that is really the biggest key. We have a minute left. Thank you. This has been Barry Prince. He's been called in. Thank you for joining us, Barry.
You're welcome.
Why don't you tell people how to find your show right now, since you're open?
Actually, tomorrow night I'm on TCT, These Changing Times Radio at 6 p.m. Pacific. And I also co-host on the Ocelli Effect on American Freedom Radio Monday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific. You can find me
That's how
there. You
I
can
heard
find me
you.
on Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can find that show here on UCY TV. I think it
One
does.
quick thought there before you get off the air. You've got to get Shaziz on your show, Lonnie.
He is coming on the 23rd. So there
Okay,
you
okay.
go. So
You
I
guys
can't wait
do
to meet
not
him.
miss
Yeah.
that show. Do not miss that show, guys. Anybody else listening, mark that on your calendar and listen to what this man has to say.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for calling in, and happy Valentine's Day. You guys take action, have the courage to speak out, and let's find out the real facts, and let's treat each other with kindness and respect. Put your courage feet on, take action. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you tomorrow.